Well, we finally made it to the end of the first half. Maybe you'd say a week later due to the MLB lockout, but it seems the lockout really hasn't affected quality of play as much, even though we're still waiting for a couple of former All-Stars to uh, come back in the second half, obviously. In the National League, we're waiting for Jacob deGrom. We're waiting for Fernando Tatis Jr. to come back. Now, Chris Sale did come back, but guess what happened? The last day of the first half of the season, he broke his finger again. So, tough break for the Red Sox, but yes, like we do, this time of the year, we're going to recap the standings. We're going to take a look at the stat leaders and who I think is going to win the MVP, Cy Young. So we're going to get into that. First up, like we always do, let's take a look at the standings. So the Yankees had a great first half. No question about it. So they finished their first half, and we're going to put the arrow in just a second. With a record of 64 and 28. Here we go. 64 and 28, which was way expected than what we had originally thought. And obviously, what does those say about the Yankees? Aaron Judge is tearing it up. People think he's going to break the franchise record of Roger Maris. We'll have to wait and see if he can break that number 62. The pitching has been phenomenal for the Yankees. The bullpen was great. And the Yankees right now are one of the two favorites to at least come out of the American League come October. And everybody wants to see that Yankee Astro rivalry continue. And I think most of the country is wondering, can the Yankees finally get over that hump against the Astros, who, are still considered cheaters to this day? Some people think so, some people don't in Texas, but what else is there to argue about? Now, in terms of the American League East has been great. I mean, you look at all these teams right now. Tampa, they had a good first half. The Blue Jays were so-so. They're finally getting back on the right path because they fired their manager. The Red Sox, we'll have to wait and see what happens. And surprisingly, you know what? If you're a Baltimore Orioles fan, you should be very happy you finished 500. Because the Orioles were starting to get hot just after the 4th of July. And look at that. And they were even winning a couple of games in June. So the Orioles were playing all these bad teams and outside of the division. And look at that. They made up a lot of ground. So we'll see what happens in the AL East. So the AL East does have to be monitored because we do have a couple of teams that can get the wild card right now. Same in the Central. A couple teams can come out there, but we'll have to see what happens. Now, the Chicago White Sox, I think in terms of teams that were supposed to perform well, I think so far they've been the biggest disappointment of the season. They have had a lot of injuries, and I understand that. And, I don't know what else is there to say about the White Sox. They've been a major disappointment so far, so things can happen in the second half. I don't want to jump to assumptions about the Twins winning the division. The Twins have had a pretty decent first half. Surprisingly, the Guardians have had a pretty decent first half. But as expected, the Tigers stink. I was hoping for a miracle that maybe they would get their act together. Maybe they would be around 500 right around now, but no, it's not what happened. No. The bullpen's terrible. The starting pitching is terrible. What do you have to show? An offense that keeps giving you runs, but your bullpen keeps blowing leads. And same with the Royals. Their pitching is terrible. And, they are one of the worst teams in baseball right now. Both Detroit and Kansas City. Now we're going to move on to the West. We obviously knew Houston was going to be the team to beat. And the other team that was a major disappointment so far this season has to be the Anaheim Angels. Mike Trout's having injury problems again. The Angels constantly are wasting performances by Shohei Ohtani, their international superstar. And if I'm Shohei, I would just show myself out the door of Anaheim, California at this point. That's how bad this team is. However, there is an upside to this division. Everybody thought the Mariners were going to have a competitive chance. And look at this. I want to highlight something very important here. That the Mariners, at the end of the All-Star break, are winning their last 14 games. That's pretty impressive. They definitely had a good first half. And actually, they were winning a lot of their games in late June and early July. And I don't know. I mean, remember, the 2011 wild card race, keep in mind, the Braves were leading in the original wild card by a bunch of games. And remember, the Braves had a bad slump. The Cardinals were winning a lot of games. So, do I want to see Seattle clinch the American League West for the first time since 2001? Absolutely, I want to see that. But then, what happens to the Astros is the question. There's a lot of consistency with their pitching from what the first half suggests. But, the hitting's been consistent too. And I want to mention, coming out of the All-Star break, the Astros are going to be playing the Yankees on July 21st at Minute Maid Park because originally, before the lockout, the Yankees were supposed to be playing the Astros to open the season, but now those games got to be made up. The Yankees and the Astros were not supposed to play till Friday. Obviously, I know New York's going to be playing the Orioles after that. But if you're the 5 Yankees that are going to be playing in the All-Star game on Tuesday, I mean, you're basically going to get no rest because you're going to have to basically feel jet-lagged because you're going from New York to LA. You have to play the All-Star game on Tuesday. And then guess what? Wednesday, you have to join your teammates in Houston. So, you gotta understand, these games have to be made up. If you want a full 162-game season, some sacrifices had to have been made due to the lockout. So, that's the negative blunder of it. But, hey, we should just be grateful we're still getting a full 162-game season. Now, let's move on to the National League. The Mets. Ooh, boy. There are a lot of questions about the Mets. There are some good and there are some bad. First up, the Mets were supposed to sweep Chicago. Nope. Because Drew Smith, in the bullpen, their last game, gave it up. So, the Mets basically looked like the team they were supposed to be. They lived up to the expectations. All right, no Jacob deGrom to start the season. Max Scherzer was out for a bit, but they've gotten consistency back with Edwin Diaz. That's why the Mets got Edwin when they did. And now Edwin Diaz is, I think, arguably one of the best closers in all of Major League Baseball right now. There's no arguing about that. And the only thing is, let's say if this Met team does make the playoffs, which right now, if you're the second place team in the National League East, you should be making the playoffs. But there's just so many what ifs about the Mets. It's not like the Yankees where we know the Yankees can have a consistent good second half. They're going to win 100 games. There's no question about that. Houston could win 100 games too. I don't know about Seattle at this point. The American League Central is still a lot of questions. I can't say who's going to win it right now. But in terms of the National League, this is going to be a very wide open National League, I think. I don't know who's going to come out of the National League. I really don't right now. I think the Mets do have a chance, but now I go into the what ifs. What if Jacob deGrom's injured? What if Max Scherzer's injured? What if another key part of the Mets offense is injured? Brian McCann, the Mets need a catcher right now. The Mets don't have good catching. And, Drew Smith. This is what Buck Showalter has to learn, and especially watching the Orioles. Buck Showalter, in his time in Baltimore, made some very, very blunder decisions. Especially everybody remembers that wild card game against the Blue Jays a couple years ago, which all of Canada was watching that game pretty much. So, basically, Buck's going to have to learn bullpen control. And here's another example of a team that fired their manager, the Phillies. I'm telling you, I've been keeping an eye on the Phillies. Even though Bryce Harper is out, I mean, Kyle Schwarber's just tearing it up this season. Listen, didn't I say in the beginning of the season, didn't I say Kyle Schwarber is the guy to watch in the Phillies? Didn't I say that? I said that, and look where we are right now. Schwarber is an all-star, as expected. And I think Schwarber's going to at least hit 40 home runs the way he's tearing up the ball this season. That's what the Phillies got this guy. And keep in mind, I think the Phillies, the '08 Phillies, they had a 48-win record, and they won the World Series. So I keep saying the National League is open. The Braves got hot in May and June. The Mets were, hit or miss time and time, but the Braves were being a little consistent. But I will say this. Right before the All-Star break, the Mets took 2 out of 3 from the Braves. So the National League East is going to be very questionable. Just like how we're going to move on to our next topic, the National League Central. Now, I'll make one more point. Can somebody get Juan Soto? Juan Soto turned down a massive contract extension. So it just shows he wants to win a championship now. He wants to be playing in October. Because Juan's already won the World Series in DC, so... Yeah, so let's get to the Central. You know what? I'm very happy the Central's been very competitive right now. I will admit, and I said this, I said it was going to be competitive between Milwaukee and the Cardinals. And so far, Milwaukee's been hit or miss. The Cardinals have been hit or miss. But it could be worse. I think it's going to be a very interesting stretch. So think about this. The American League and the National League Central could have very competitive finishes going down the line. And of course, when I have to recap the season in October, I may have to look back on this video in the summer and say, maybe I was a little bit off in the Central, and maybe I was a little bit off in both the American League and National League. So, here we go. National League West. So right now, in terms of the NL, the Dodgers have the best record, 60-30, as to be expected. But the good news is, the Padres are living up to their expectations. The bullpen's been consistent. The hitting, in terms of not having Fernando Tatis Jr., they've been looking pretty good. And I think once the Padres get back Tatis, look out. Because the Giants I really think they're going to get the first wild card. There's no question. Now, are they going to get 100 wins? Hard to say right now. Because obviously, I know the Dodgers are going to get 100 wins. So, let's see what happens when we get to that point. So, now what we're going to do is take a look at the wild card. And in terms of the wild card teams, obviously right now, do I put my stock on Tampa? I don't really know right now. Again, there's a lot of what-ifs in the American League East. Now, in terms of the Mariners, I would say if you were to put a stock on any of these teams right now, I would say Seattle's the team to closely watch in the American League race. Because they were almost there last year in the old two-team wildcard system. I think this is the year they finally break the playoff drought curse. They have to. I mean, the way they've been playing, they have to. Tampa, again, I don't know what will happen. The Blue Jays, I'll say maybe. But they're gonna need their hitting and the pitching to stay consistent. I think they can do that. Versus the Rays right now, I don't know. I mean, that's a what if. Same with the Red Sox. The Guardians, I don't know. A lot of what ifs with Cleveland. Same with the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles can definitely get on a hot stretch again. It's very possible, like they were in the end of the first half, but I don't know. So, that takes care of the American League discussion for now. In terms of the National League, again, second place winner of the division should make the playoffs. Either it's going to be the Mets or the Braves in terms of who gets that first wild card spot. Again, keep your eye out for San Diego. That's another stock that you should take. In terms of what I think is going to happen between the Phillies and the Cardinals and, I don't know, maybe San Francisco, I would say Dave Kaplan, he's a very smart manager. I would say maybe not, because I think if we were to give an estimation, I want to say as a safe bet, the Cardinals are going to win the National League Central. Just because as the farewell tour of Molina, Wainwright, and then Pujols. So, yeah, I would say if I were to be consistent, as long as the Phillies pitching and the hitting stays consistent in the second half, which may be a little bit reminiscent of the 2008 team that had the same record, that won the World Series, then I could see the same three teams now in the National League the way they are. Versus the American League, again, I think the American League's more wide open. If you're just going to say Seattle gets the top spot, and then Tampa and Toronto, Boston, Cleveland, Baltimore, and maybe even the White Sox all battling it out for those other two spots. So, I think the Mariners are going to win 90-plus games, and they should get in. I'd be very surprised if I'm coming back in October and the Mariners are not in. Because I think that's my stock right now in terms of who gets in. But a lot of variables and a lot of what-ifs in terms of the Central in both the American League and the National League. Now let's get to our stat leaders for, of course, the MVP, Cy Young, and then I'm going to figure out how to get the Rookie of the Year determined. But in terms of who I think is going to end up winning the MVP, if I were to say right now in terms of average-wise, I understand Devers from the Red Sox is doing great, but listen, Judge is leading the American League in RBIs and homers, and especially if he's going to hit 62 or 60. Well, in order to break Roger Maris's franchise record, he's going to need 63 home runs. And everybody thought A-Rod was going to break the franchise record a long time ago, but that didn't happen. But look, there's a lot of people who think he's going to hit 60 home runs. No, I think it's going to probably be around 50, 55 home runs, somewhere around there. Because normally Judge slumps in April. He has been known to do that. But I do see Judge definitely getting above 100 RBIs. So Judge is likely going to end up winning the American League Award for now in terms of MVP. Because I would be very shocked if Judge does not win the MVP. Because Alvarez is only hitting 306. I mean, really? You have to base it on who's hitting the most home runs and the most RBIs right now. It's obviously Aaron Judge. Okay, now we're going to move on to the National League. Now, in terms of who I think is going to win the National League Award at the moment, that's hard to say right now. But, yeah, I would say if I were to put a safe bet in terms of where I think it's going to end up, I think Goldschmidt's going to likely end up winning the award. He has the National League in average. He has the most RBIs. I don't want to hear any excuses about Austin Riley. Austin Riley has a 285 average. All right. So, right now, it's going to have to end up being Goldschmidt. It has to be. So, now we're going to go pitching-wise. And let's go to American League leaders in terms of wins and losses. So, in terms of the ERA race, Shane McClannon's been pitching great. Justin Verlander has been pitching great. Garrett Cole, same situation. But you got to remember, this year is a lot different in terms of how the MVP is going to be voted. I understand that Cole's one of the American League leaders in strikeouts for the Yankees. But you got to remember, the ERA is going to be very important between Shane McClellan and Justin Verlander. So I think these are the two guys that you need to keep an eye on going into the second half. In terms of the National League, I would say your safe bet would actually go with Tony Gonsolin. I mean, Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins, he's been pitching great. There's no question about that. But Tony Gonsolin, he has not lost a game at all this season. He's only pitched 93 innings this year, and he's not lost a game. So, I don't know at this point. It's really going to have to come down to Alcantara and then Gonsolin. That's really going to have to come down to that factor. But it'll really go down the stretch. Same with the hitting wise. Because other years we have a general idea. We all knew when Jacob deGrom was going to win the Cy Young before his injury problems. And listen, I'm telling you right now, the Mets pitchers are not thinking about awards. They're not. They're too busy focused on finally winning their first World Series since 1986. I think they're too focused on that right now. So I'm just looking at this random sports betting website, and I do agree that Julio Rodriguez has been the main reason why the Mariners have been doing very well in the season. He's definitely a good outfielder. He's been great. He's been tearing up the ball. He basically, think about this. The Mariners had a rookie. Remember Ichiro? That's how they won all those games. So, could be deja vu all over again. In terms of the National League, I would say right now, I do think Spencer Strider is the favorite. Just because if you're looking at his stats right now, And they are some historic stats. Don't get me wrong. Now, this is a 23-year-old guy who just came into the major leagues this year. All right? So, the Braves have had this guy in the organization for a while. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a lot of strikeouts. So I think he's definitely worthy of the award right now. So, with that being all said, enjoy the All-Star break, folks. I know Pete Alonso's likely going to end up winning another award again. And hopefully things will be a lot different in October. I really hope the Mets win their first National League East division since 2015. I hope the Yankees can do the same in their division. And I really hope the Seattle Mariners are going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2001. So, that's it. Thank you for watching. And enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy the game if you're going to be watching, but I'm looking forward to the Home Run Derby. So, take care. And also enjoy the second half.